And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Pug Thompson. 100% agree. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
All right, guys, you're here with another episode of Weighing In. Big John McCarthy and myself. We are going to do a quick little recap of basically this weekend in Bellator. I was in London.
Back from London. How you feeling, man?
I felt pretty good. I got plenty of sleep. I got plenty of sleep on the plane. Slept pretty good last night, and the fights were great. I thought the undercard was phenomenal. The undercard had a lot of good fights.
It did have some good fights. I watched.
Yes.
I watched. Now, I did not get the first two, but other than that, I watched.
Yeah. That young girl McIntyre. She's tough.
She is tough.
She's tough. The one you missed, yeah, she's tough. She's good. What I liked is she made some adjustments and even though she was winning, she was making adjustments as the fight was going on. She did some serious damage with her hands, and that's what you'd like to see from a pro debuter. I mean, this is how we build up young talent. And I mean, everyone keeps knocking. I think they try to knock right away. Oh, these fighters don't have any experience. Yeah, because anybody that has experience, they're just going to try to jump on the UFC bandwagon. You're trying to grab guys when they're young. You're trying to grab the young talent while you can, and and then build them up to be stars. That's the best thing that right now, like, we understand that we have to do. Everyone looks at the UFC and, like, you look at the guys that were real popular for a while. You had T. Wood was a champ. Luke was a champ. What's called DC's been the champ. Like, you have all these guys that came over that were big splashes in the UFC, but they all were built up as stars in Strikeforce. And I'm simply saying, like, we have to take young people and make them stars. Even though Nick and Robbie were in the UFC before, but their career was resurrected back in Strikeforce, and then they were built up again. And confidence, like we've talked about, is always the key into building young athletes and getting them back on track. And so I like to see. Sometimes you see some pro debuters, but at least they lived up to the hype of the pro debuter that you're looking for. Someone that you can build around. Like, that was a pretty dominant performance by someone. And they had fought before, and but she had a real good performance. The first time they had fought her, she had submitted her, and this time she had a stoppage. I mean, it was nasty. She hit her with some good clean shots.
She was. You were saying it exactly right. Her head was on that center line, and she was not moving. It was just stuck up there like just this perfect piñata, and she was tagging it. She was putting some mitts to her. But you're right about it. The thing to think about is many times guys are really good. They're special, and you see it in the gym even when they're out of their pro debut or they've had one professional fight, but they get put into that big show a little too soon. They're not quite prepared for it. Not only physically, mentally, there really is where the problem lies. There's pressures that people don't understand, and they need to, sometimes just gain that more experience without having all the pressure and not having that spotlight on them. And that's how guys grow, and that's exactly what happened with, Robbie Lawler. When he came in, they put a big spotlight on him in the UFC. If you recall back, they'd put on a special show. It was UFC 37.5. We had a 0.5. Yeah,
I know. Okay? I was supposed to fight Joao Perini on that card.
Oh, you should have.
I got hurt. I know. Frank Shamrock hurt me the week before the fight. He hurt me.
Smack him.
Yeah,
that show was the best damn sports show, period. And it was Robbie Lawler that they decided that they were going to put forward as that young talent. They put him against Steve Berger. And, Steve Berger was a good fighter, but they put Robbie out there to be that guy, and they put so much pressure on him that at the time he wasn't ready for it. So, you're going to get everybody with their ideas. And I love the internet, and I love social media for all the geniuses that are out there and all of their thoughts. But the fact is, someone gets a chance. It's that opportunity. If they can make that opportunity work, congratulations, man. That's what it's there for. If you can't, then you step back and come back and try it again later.
Yeah, there was another fight on the card that on the undercard that was, it didn't live up to the hype that I thought it was gonna. But Whiteford and Sam Cecilia.
It was great.
was a freaking
It was great
fight. I mean, it had all the drama and all the things and a little bit of the suspense.
Round.
Yeah, but it had a little bit of boringness in the beginning because there was so much respect mutually for each other in the first round. And I was like, gosh, you guys, just do something.
Sam had that fight.
Yeah, he did. He was moments away. I would say, yeah.
But you got to give it to Whiteford and the way he went after it. Sam got tired, and then Sam started looking at the clock, and Sam stopped being offensive.
Yep.
And that was his undoing.
Yeah, I mean, I called it on the commentary. I told Dave Ferrara, I said, hey, when he had him rocked and he was on top of him in the beginning of the third round, he had him rocked, got on top, then he didn't do anything. Gave him a moment to breathe. Just let it go a little bit. Not even have to do, don't try to finish him. Just touch, body, head, something like that to keep him guessing, little hammer fist, but just to make him think like, oh man, I got to try to get out of here, make him panic more, make him stress. But he didn't do any of that, and he just held him there, and then by then he recovered fully, and he was able to get back to his feet and finish the fight. I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Yeah. Oh, it caught me, man. It just really caught me by surprise. But and then the Nathan Rose fight with God, I can't remember the kid's name. Damn it. I feel so bad. I feel bad I forgot his name. Nathan Rose fought a guy, and he got cut really bad in the beginning of the first round. But it was a phenomenal fight. I mean,
I know which one you're talking. The two tall, thin kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Nathan Rose is the kind of yoked up black guy, but he was so good. Nathan was putting the pressure, was landing some good shots in the first round, cut him viciously.
Hardwick?
Hardwick, sorry. God, name just escaped my mind. I was thinking Whiteford the whole time. Whiteford. Anyways, Hardwick fought a phenomenal fight with that big gash on it. I mean, we're talking Marvin Eastman style of like gash on the head. I was like, oh gosh, that is disgusting. But the corners, I got to tell you, our cut guys did a phenomenal job. Was barely bleeding kind of the rest of the fight. Was able to put it together. His conditioning was on point. He did everything he needed to do to win that fight. Nathan Rose just ran out of gas. You could tell halfway through the second round he was tired. And then when that happened, what's it called? Hardwick. I keep thinking Whiteford. Hardwick just kept pushing the pace, and he had some nice work and was able to do a fantastic job. I got to tip my hat to that young man. He fought a great fight with a cut like that. Most fighters sometimes will shut down, or they just won't do. They won't fight their fight, And he didn't let it hinder him at all, and just kept coming forward. It was a phenomenal
the way it's supposed to be.
Phenomenal fight.
It's there. There's nothing you can do about it. Just keep going.
Yeah.
How'd you like Alfie Davis?
Look, I know I'm supposed to be impressed. I know I am. But I guess to quote the GSP, I'm not impressed by your performance. I just was not impressed. There was moments where he'd hit clean shots, clean punches, and he just backed away. And then there was moments where he didn't hit anything. He tried to rush and step in. He hasn't figured out. I know he's a really good kickboxer. I know he's like a really good, taekwondo, karate style guy.
He's got an incredible axe kick.
He's amazing. I know. I saw that. I saw that video. He's phenomenal. He's an athlete. He's phenomenal. He's got good conditioning, good cardio. The problem is he hasn't figured out the MMA distance and range yet. And the reason why is like he jumps in too much. And some guys, they just don't move back. Like I think in his tournament style of fighting, people move back away from him. They shuffle their feet really well, and they counter off of that really well. MMA guys don't have footwork like that. So when he steps in and slides in and tries to land, I think he's thinking that someone's going to move out of the way. And they're like, no, you're in my range now for me to grab you and throw you down. And he always seems like he's smothering his punches, a little bit of his kicks. But if he doesn't smother his kicks, then he's just throwing one at a time, one punch, one kick. And then it's going to be hard to get guys out of there with one punch, one kick when they know you're just going to do one thing flashy and then you're done. So he just hasn't figured it out yet, the MMA game. But when he does, I think he's going to be really good. I like to see young athletes like him that he really was trying some new things. He was working the takedowns, got a couple takedowns. He did some good stuff. I was very impressed with that part of his game. And the way he was trying to evolve. I just wasn't impressed with how he's utilizing his stand-up just yet.
his stand-up is unique because he can throw those kicks. He reminds me of Andy Hoog with his axe kick because he can stand, basically 2 feet from you, and he will land that thing. So if you get it, you think that you're in a distance, he can't kick you, he will kick you, and he'll hit you with his heel. And he's got some dynamic moves. It's just a matter of the entire confidence of the full MMA deal is what he's always been. You're looking at, you're going, he needs to get that whole transitioning together where it flows. And right now it's still not flowing, as it should, but it's getting better.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I saw a video of him and MVP when they went against each other, and that was pretty cool. Yeah. There was in a karate style or taekwondo style tournament. It was pretty cool. I was impressed with that. I mean, think about how small he is compared to MVP, and there was a couple moments there where he was able to get some nice exchanges with MVP. I think the sky is the limit for him. He just got to keep evolving and really start to feel more comfortable in the cage. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah. Give him time. That's it. Give him time. The other thing as well is who was the other fight that I wanted to let me ask you this. I got thrown a little bit kind of off guard. And when I'm doing the ring interviews and Terry Brazier grabs the mic and drops a couple F-bombs. And then I was like baffled. I'm like, what do I do? Like, what do you do in those situations? I mean, I just was shrugged it off. Like, gosh, Terry, what are you doing? We're on national television for you guys. Come on.
Yeah, nothing. First off, when he jumps in there and grabs a hold of the mic, even though you're holding on to it, and he says something, you can't take those words back from him. So,
I know.
And all I do is look at him and say, not a good comment, and just move on. It's just try to make light of it because that's all it is. He needs to figure out if he wants to get that mic time, he needs to get a win.
Yeah,
I mean, just the way I'm saying it, because he can say what he wants. Soar whooped his ass.
Soren Bach whooped his butt, and
just freaking
dominated the fight
took
everywhere.
him down. And I'm telling you, his wrestling is just very technically good.
Yes.
And his ground game, European, I'm telling you, it's right up there close to Gunnar Nelson's. It's good. He's got very heavy hips, and he controls positions well, and he's good. He's that grinding monster that he's the European John Fitch.
Yeah.
Because he did a great job. You watch the leg lace that guy does. It is no accident. He does it time. He hit that same double leg and that same leg lace off of it time after time after time. And Brazier knew it was going to happen, still couldn't stop it from happening.
It was just a pattern. He just kept doing the same thing over and over, and he just.
Hey, if it's working.
Yeah, and Terry Brazier couldn't find anything. Couldn't find any way to stop it. Every time he wanted to throw something, he just ducked right underneath, boom, right to the double leg, right to the trip, stepped off and stepped back over the legs and laced the legs. Yep. From then on, it was the only thing that I thought he could have potentially have done better was turn Terry's back off the fence and lay him back flat so he could potentially posture up or sit up in the mounted position for more groundwork. Yeah. But in the process, because Terry's back was against the fence, so he couldn't do a whole lot of damage from that position. But I'm going to say this, and I don't know if it's just because it's the UK fighters, but because I know a lot of the UK fighters that came up to you, hey man, we watch your show, we watch you and Big John and this and that. I'm going to say this to you guys because I know you guys are probably all sitting around listening to this. If you guys want to make a difference and you want to make a change in what's going on, you guys need to stop bitching about boring fighters. Okay, get the fuck up off the ground and start trying to get a win. That drives me crazy. And I'm a big Paul Daly fan. I'm a huge Paul Daly fan. He did it with John Fitch, but I know it's frustrating, and that's what John Fitch does, and this is what Soren Bach did to Terry, and you have these guys. Even Fabian Edwards did a little bit with Shipman. He's looking at the ref like, stand me up. Yeah. John, we're gonna have this conversation multiple times because LA's coming up, and I know we're going to Hawaii first, then we have LA, but then I'm going back to Dublin, and when I go back to Dublin, which I believe you're going with, is we're going to have this full-on conversation, and that conversation is going to be with these guys. Hey, there's a couple things you guys need to understand. The ref is not there to save you. He's there to help you if you get to make sure that you're okay and you're not injured. He's not there to save you from you just fucking laying on your back getting smashed by somebody. That is not what they're there for. Okay, and when you look up at the ref and you go, that all that means is to the ref is I'm stuck.
No,
it just means you're stuck.
This is what it means. I'll tell you exactly what it means, because it's basically this the same statement you will get every time is he's not doing anything. Yeah. And I just look at him and say, and neither the fuck are you. Get yourself out.
It's frustrating. I was getting upset watching these guys fight.
Well, and it is that point where they look at it like, well, he's not doing it, but he is working towards something. And as long as he's working towards something, that referee is going to let him go. And that's what these guys don't see. It was the same thing with Terry Brazier. There were times I'm looking and I'm saying, go to your side. Because when you're on your back and a guy laces your legs, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, now you're sitting up against a fence. Your feet are up in the air. There's nowhere, your legs don't bend that way.
Yeah.
So there's nowhere for you to go. So if you turn to your side, you can actually get some room and scoot one leg out and try to get yourself up. And it's just a system of how do you do things? How do you get out of things? Mm-hmm. But I don't know if he doesn't know it. I don't know what's going on. But you have a guy sitting there with his legs up in the air, and you realize you can't get up with him holding your legs that way.
Yeah.
And you're just going to lose this fight. You've got to figure it out. The one thing, you try to tell guys is this: no matter what, yes, you could get tired. And it's a great fear among fighters. People sometimes don't realize it. Fighters fear getting tired in the cage because there's nothing worse. Because when you're tired and you still have to fight, it's agony. And, especially if someone can then push a pace on you that keeps you in that deficit. But you need to figure out that mental conquest in fights happen all the time. And if you have a guy that takes you down and you do not acquiesce to the position, you don't sit there and say, okay, I will accept this, and you fight against it and you make his life rough and you get yourself back up, you just won a mental battle. Because especially he takes you down and then it happens a second time, trust me, in the back of his mind, he's going, holy shit, I can't keep this guy down.
Yeah.
And that's the way you have to look at it. Yes, I might have to burn gas to get there. Yes, this is going to possibly put me at a deficit when it comes to my cardio, but I need to do this to make him know I will never accept the position. But some guys do and some guys don't.
Yeah, being tired and it just makes you feel like less of a man. Like you cannot, like you can't protect yourself.
Yeah.
And it really does hit your ego. Like, fuck, man. Like you're less of a man. That's what it makes you feel like.
Well, you're not, but
yeah, I know. But in your mind, that's what's going through your mind at that moment.
And it's that last thing of, man, if I get really tired, I won't be able to protect myself.
Yeah.
And that's a concern.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as Terry goes, he just needs to focus on and you've said this before, when refs are looking, you stop looking at the refs. Stop looking for them to help. You need to stay focused in the fight. You got to focus on what you need to do to use the techniques to get up, and I was trying to explain to somebody, I think we were all meeting up afterwards and having a conversation with some of the fighters, and during that process, I was telling some of the fighters, like, look, sometimes you have to give up a position to get a position. Some of them were so focused on not giving their back, in that position where Soren Bach had his legs laced and Fabian Edwards, same thing with Shipman. I want to say it was the beginning of the third round. He got taken down and he had his legs laced also. And sometimes you have to turn enough to give your back. And as you start to give your back and they start to make their way up, then you got to turn back into them or turn fully to give their back and push off and get away and get to your hands and feet and knees or whatever it is to get back to your feet. They're so afraid of losing by submission or knockout or anything along those lines that they end up not compromising one little tiny position to get themselves back up to their feet. Otherwise, you're just going to hang out there and you want to talk about it being boring. You're making it boring because you're not willing to go that extra mile to give up that position sometimes. You have to have confidence in the fact that you know how to escape the back. You have confidence in the fact of not letting them get the hooks in. You have to have confidence in the fact that you know what you're doing when it comes down to getting out of any position they put you in. And if you don't, then that means that you're not doing your job in the gym and you're not prepared to do your job in the cage that night. And those are the moments when I start looking at fighters and they're looking at the refs to like kind of help them along. Why? Like, you should be comfortable in every position in this game that you should be able to get out. This is a common thing. If you guys have watched any fights at all, I'm sure everyone's seen Khabib fight. Okay, I did this to KJ Noons back in Strikeforce. I took him down, laced his legs, and just kept making him give me his back. And that was it. And when he didn't give me his back, I just went to mount. Like, these are things. Khabib's made a career out of this now. It's like, these are the things that people do. How do you not practice this and these escapes all the time? When they were doing the crucifix for a while, you guys got to figure out how to get out of there. And there's ways to get out. You guys just haven't learned it. So when you're on bottom just taking elbows or punches, you got to figure out how to get out of there. Escape
well,
a little
arm. As you said, that's what I don't know. How many times were you in training where you your coach put you in the worst position and said, get out?
Yeah.
And then when you finally got out, put you right back in the same position. Get out again. And that's all you do. That day, you work on getting out of whatever position it is, if it's crucifix, if it's a leg lace. That is what you do the entire day. And then you come back the next day and here it comes again. Just get out. And you've got to be comfortable with the worst positions you can be in and know that I have multiple plans, A, B, C, to get myself out of these positions. If A doesn't work, I'm moving to B. And if B doesn't work, I've got C to try. And you've got to have that in the back of your mind, because if you don't, and you haven't practiced those positions, when they happen, and they will, you're going to panic, and then bad things will happen.
Exactly. Let's talk about Fabian Edwards and Shipman.
You know what? It was a good fight. It kind of was a little bit more lackluster. I want to say this. I really like Mike Shipman as a fighter.
Yep.
But he reminds me of Keith Jardine.
Mm-hmm. And I said this in the fighter interview. Same exact thing to Fabian Edwards. I said he's herky-jerky. He's got
He's herky-jerky. He's awkward. And that's why he lost the fight. Because he didn't lose the fight. I'm just telling you, Fabian Edwards got a gift. If you look at who landed the better shots overall, who was the guy that won the grappling sections when they were there, you look at what Fabian Edwards did, he got 1 round. Mike Shipman got 2 rounds. And he didn't get the fight because he's not pretty to watch. Fabian Edwards is that smooth, beautiful style. He does things very well. He flows. It's like watching art when you watch him move. And Mike Shipman is like watching a train wreck as far as just the jerky movement. Yeah. But you've got to give credit to what is effective in the fight. And I can't believe one of the judges gave Fabian Edwards every round. I just look at him like, what are you watching? But again, it's that the human eye sometimes, when it watches that style that just looks like it's uncomfortable, they think to themselves, oh, he's uncomfortable, and that's a problem in the fight.
Yeah, that's not fair. That's not fair.
No, it's not fair at all. But I saw Keith Jardine lose fights. I watched him fight, Stephan Bonner. He lost that fight. Stephan Bonner was smooth. Now, Stephan wasn't the smoothest guy, but he's a lot smoother than Jardine. And you watch the fight. Jardine did some good things. Bonner did some good things. But he's got a herky-jerky style. Mike Shipman is the exact same thing. And sometimes that will play in the eyes of the judges, that they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, they don't give him as much credit. He's not as effective as he should be, or that's not as good as it was. When you just got to go by how effective was he? That may have looked really pretty, but did it actually have effect when that ugly thing landed? And look, it had effect. I felt bad for him.
Yeah, I thought it was a close fight. I could see it potentially going either way, but I'm a big Fabian fan. I'm also a Shipman fan. I thought Shipman was going to get it on the judges' cards. But as soon as they said 30-27, I knew they gave it to Fabian, because there's no way Fabian lost the third round.
Yeah. I agree.
And so I was like 30-20. I'm like, there's no way that a judge would have thought Fabian lost the third round. And I was like, so then for sure he won this fight. I'm like,
well, there's no way that Fabian won the second round.
Yeah, that's true. That's true as well. That's true as well. So I don't know. Yeah, it was one of those fights. Now here's this question: do we run it back right away, or do we just go our separate ways, get a couple wins for both separate ways, get a couple wins, and then run it back again later on at another time?
You know, it's time for Fabian Edwards to be brought up into that next echelon. So I think the fight that you want to make is either Fabian Edwards, bring him in with the John Salter, but I think Costello Von Steenis against Fabian Edwards, that's the fight to make.
That is the freaking fight to make. I cannot wait for that fight.
That would be a hell of a fight.
I would be phenomenal, man. Like, to me, that's the fight to make for sure, 100%. And and I think another good fight, I'd like to see Shipman and Salter.
That wouldn't be a bad fight.
Yeah,
it really wouldn't. Salter's a problem for guys right now because his ground game is so good.
Yeah.
When you think that you're good on the ground, and you are good on the ground. You can control most guys. You can get guys to, you can force them into going the way you want and getting that position you want. And then you start grappling with a guy like Salter and you go, holy shit, what is that? It's just a different level. And there are those guys out there, and Salter's one of them.
So Salter's here, but then you've got Lovato Jr. that's like here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you saw that with their fight. Like, he's got good enough wrestling to stop Lovato Jr.'s takedowns until the third round came and he made a mistake and the fight was done. Just like that. It's impressive, man, to see what the difference is between levels. Like, I don't know, I can't recall who said this, but like someone did say there is levels to this game, and it's true, man. It's awesome. It's awesome to see. Definitely awesome to see. All right, let's get to the obvious controversy, or the not controversy. It's more of just the social media, just backlash that we're not getting, but MVP is getting, the Bellator is getting. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about people and what they're criticizing MVP's opponents. They're criticizing MVP and what he does. But let's be real. My first take is this. He was supposed to fight Derek Anderson. Yeah. The fight was, Derek got hurt, and his last-minute replacement was Melilo. When Melilo came, like, this is the guy that was kind of, we could bring over. He had a good record. I believe he was 13-2. I mean, it wasn't like he was he wasn't a bum. The thing is MVP's supposed to be doing what he's supposed to be doing this to these guys, and when you get last minute replacement guys, they're not in shape, and they haven't had time to game plan for somebody like him. Melilo and I'm not trying to knock Paul Daly, but Melilo probably would have had a better performance against someone like Paul Daly, who's a straightforward fighter, not a whole lot of movement, just wants to throw down. I'm not saying he would have got any further than he did with MVP, but I'm simply saying that it's a traditional style of fighting is Paul Daly versus MVP is not. And when I did the fighter interviews and Melilo turns to me and goes, "Yeah, I'm going to figure him out when I'm in there." I shook my head. I was like,
you just should have looked at it and said, "That's a great idea."
I didn't even know what to say. I had no clue what to say. I was like, wow. I said, this is not. I was in my mind. I'm like, this is not going to go well. This is not.
It's going to be ugly.
Yeah, I just look. I've sparred and trained with a guy that is just phenomenal for years. I just had a rough time. Actually getting when he got in the cage of performing, but in the gym, he reminded me a lot of like how Vitor Belfort, people talked about Vitor Belfort taking Luke Rockhold down. He's taken, DC, Dan Cormier down. Like we're talking 155-pounder and Thomas Dion. Just a phenomenal kickboxer. But when the bright lights turn on, he had a hard time. MVP doesn't have that problem. But the thing is when you're trying to game plan or deal with somebody that is that good, so fast, so quick, it doesn't matter what level you are, they're always hard to deal with. And you see it with the top guys that fight Stephen Thompson. Same shit.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to give you some comparisons. And Bobby Razak is a friend of mine. And Bobby's from England. Bobby's a great guy.
Yep.
Black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Does incredible
Bobby.
Documentaries and everything. Mm-hmm. And he put a tweet out, and I love Bobby. And he put a tweet out saying, I'm really getting disappointed with who they're giving, MVP. And I'm like, Bobby, what do you want? He had a tough fighter in Derek Anderson. And Derek Anderson is a tough fighter. Derek Anderson is a guy, 16-3, we'll say, is a record. So very comparable to, MVP coming into that fight. He's been submitted or stopped in a fight one time. That was against Marcin Held, who submits everybody, if he's going to get a win. So he submitted Derek Anderson. Other than that, his other two losses are by decision. Split decision to Campos, I think, or unanimous to Campos and split in another one. Beat Patricky Pitbull twice. And is of the size now that he needs to move up to the 170 pound. That would have been a very good opponent. You got to look and say, MVP has been moving up in the people they put him in. They put him into the tournament. He beats Paul Daly. He loses to Douglas Lima. All right. So when he's coming into this fight, he's at what? 15-1, right? 15-1. So there's 16 fights there, 17 fights, we'll say it's since he won the fight. I want to go back and I want you to think of Anderson Silva is similar to MVP. So let's take a look at Anderson Silva's first 17 fights. The records, if you look at everything, the record for Anderson Silva as far as his record at the time was 14-3 at 17 fights. All right. His opponent's combined records, 155 wins, 60 losses, and 11 draws. But if you take one fighter out of that, being Jeremy Horn, who at the time that he fought Anderson Silva was 70-12. Okay, 70-12-5. So at the time that he fought Anderson, that's a whole lot of wins you're putting into that. So if you take him out, Anderson Silva, 85, 48, and 6 was the combined record of the people he had fought at the time that he got to 17 fights. MVP right now, 211, 92, and 2. So comparatively, is the experience level of the people he's fighting better than what you got with Anderson Silva? Or even comparable if you put Jeremy Horn back in the mix? Yeah, it is. They've been giving him people. Anderson Silva had 5 people that had losing records when he fought them. 5. MVP has had one person have a losing record. It was his second fight as a pro in mixed martial arts. So you can take a look, and comparatively, it's hard to find people at a certain point that want to fight that guy.
Yeah.
And that's your problem for Bellator is you can look and say, are there matchups you can put him against? Yeah, and there's a matchup that I think is one that, you could put him in a couple of ways. You can put him against a Neiman Gracie, but Neiman is fighting here coming up in Hawaii. Or there's a guy named Logan Storley who's 11-0 right now. Great wrestling. Has looked phenomenal. I would love to see Logan Storley and MVP. You can't just you can't put him right back against Douglas Lima. That doesn't make sense.
No, I got you.
It just doesn't. If you want to give Paul Daly that bump and say, "Oh, you want to try him again?" I think that's okay. You could put him in against Paul Daly again.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be the same as it was the first time. I think it's going to be a lot different. But I don't think it's going to go Daly's way. Now, I could be wrong, but it's figuring things out and looking. Paul Daly came in with a great game plan that MVP was not prepared for.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen the second time. So that means that you're going to get into that stand-up battle with him now, or you're going to try to bring that wrestling game plan back out and see if it'll work. you've got to look and understand when you've got a guy like Michael Venom Page, he's different. And he's someone that when you have a fighter pull out, you're not going to find a good fighter that is going to want to go on a week and a half's notice and face that guy when they go, I have had no opportunity to prepare for what he does.
Yeah.
So, Bellator did what it could. I don't care if it's Bellator or the UFC. I've seen the UFC do the same thing, and people complain. It's like, what do you want them to do?
Yeah.
What they're trying to do is they offered this guy a fight. His opponent fell out, and they're trying to find him somebody now that they know is not as good as the opponent they had in the beginning, but it's all they can come up with because no one wants to take that fight. That opportunity doesn't look so great.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take a look at Khabib and Ali Quinta, and how that fight came about. Remember how the injury happened, and here you are now, and that the promotion's stuck in a shitty situation.
Oh,
they're
totally.
They're doing the best they can. I believe Malilo was like 13-2, so he has a winning record. It wasn't, obviously some of the people he's fought, we don't know. We don't know who they are. Like the European market is being freshly tapped into, and that's what we're doing. Like as Bellator's trying to get their their hands in there and get a hold of all these untapped talented guys. And no one's going to want to turn around and fight MVP. It's like, it would be no different if someone threw somebody out to say, hey, T Wood's hurt. He can't fight Stephen Thompson. Everyone's going to go, Stephen Thompson's like the hardest guy to fight. Like, you have to prepare for him a little bit, or at least have some, you cannot figure.
He's different.
Malilo said it. I'm going to figure it out when I'm in there. And you saw what happened to him. And other fighters know you cannot. Talented top guys, they're going to register in their head like, I cannot figure that guy out in 1 week.
How many guys would be happy, do you think? Or I know they wouldn't take it, but let's take a 170-pound fight, and you are preparing for somebody, and then they say, hey, Josh, you know what? That guy's out. We're going to give you Ray Daniels, and you got a week.
No thanks.
Exactly, and you're the guy that's in the main position. And you look and you go, I am not going to fight a guy like that when I don't have time to prepare for him.
Yeah, not the guy that did the guy that did the 920 and then knocked the guy out with a punch. No,
that's Ray Daniels.
I'm done with no thanks, bud.
Raymond Daniels, if you have not tried to prepare for what he does, you are in deep trouble. And that's what's going to happen when you have, someone pull out of a fight with MVP. It's hard to get that replacement.
Yeah, for me, I felt like Derek Anderson was the perfect step up in competition that he needed for that next level. And then once you got past Derek Anderson, you really were just going to, after that, it was like there was nothing else. You have Neiman Gracie, you've got John Fitch, you brought up somebody else. Who was the other name?
Logan Storley.
Logan Storley.
Yeah, that's a good one right there.
That's another one. So you have those three guys. I would like to see Neiman Gracie and Logan Storley fight, because now you have somebody like Neiman Gracie who's going to utilize or make Logan Storley stand a little bit more. Because on top, you never know. You never know. I mean, it'd be kind of foolish to go down to the ground with Neiman Gracie in the beginning of a fight, knowing that you're dry. As the fight goes on, I can see you getting away with it. But look, another fight to possibly make. As far as what people are thinking, as far as MVP, I would like to see him fight Derek Anderson. I want to see that fight happen. I think the length, the range, the size of Derek Anderson is huge. People don't realize how big Derek Anderson is. He's big, man.
He's a lightweight. I had someone on Twitter tell me, John, you used to tell the truth, and now you're shilling. And I'm like, are you kidding me, man? I'm talking about a guy that he's lost 3 fights in his career. He's still young, and he is a monster to everybody.
Yeah. He had issues making weight at 55 a couple times, and when he didn't make the weight, we got to revert back to that and say, hey, he had a hard time making the weight back then. Now he's trying to go to 170. I think 170 is going to be a better place for him. I also feel the same way about Asad Awad. That's another thing. Maybe you put Asad Awad against MVP after a win or two. That's another guy that I think his fight's a lot better at 170. So that's just my 2 cents.
I would like to see Rory McDonald. Put Rory McDonald and MVP together. You want to see a fight? Hello. Rory already fought someone similar in Stephen Thompson and didn't have the best results. He did everything he could, tried Imanari rolls, everything, couldn't get him down. Maybe this time with MVP it would be a different story.
That's a good idea. I'd like to see that fight as well.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the MVP situation and scenario. Very true. Yeah, that's the Bellator thing. I think that's very good. I think I'd like to see that. Look, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Gina Carano interview. Let's talk about that. She was today on Ariel Helwani, and
Ariel finally got his interview with Gina Carano.
What a horn dog. What a horn dog. He was whining and crying. I saw the beginning of the interview, and he was like, I don't get it. You've done interviews with other people, but you never did mine. I'm like, Ariel, calm down. Stop whining. Stop crying. It's not that she doesn't like you. It's just like she said, she was looking for a moment to have something to brag about and talk about. And like, hey, my movie's doing great, or this is going to be a great movie, or whatever it was. I'm coming back, and but look, the one thing, obviously, and I already can read all the responses. People are going to think that I'm Dana bashing, but I'm not Dana bashing.
Yes, you are.
I'm not. I'm not Dana bashing. Look, I want to take all the fans into the psyche of the fighters, and the psyche of the fighters. Like, look, when fighters have to deal with promoters, boxing, MMA, doesn't make a difference. There's a level of I don't want to say harassment, but there's a level of mistreatment. What is it? What was the word?
Abuse.
Tension. Abuse.
Abuse.
Yes. There is a level of abuse that you have from your promoter to the athlete. And it doesn't go that way with all promoters. Okay. But we've seen it time and time again over, with Dana. And the main part is I'm going to stick with is on the girl. Is with Gina Carano and the negotiations of when she was offered $1 million. And you have the backstory on this. She confirmed everything that you and I had already known, or you had just told me, or you had already told me. But Can you give me the full rundown on what it was basically this interview talks about?
Well, she got an offer from the UFC. They decided at the time Ronda was, just riding high, and they were looking for big fights that they could sell for big pay-per-view dollars, and Gina's name came up. They asked her to come out to lunch. I know that it went very well. I think she brought all that up with Ariel and stuff, and they offered her $1 million for that fight. But you figure her last fight was against Chris Cyborg. That fight in Strikeforce, she had not fought since. Her last training camp for that fight was at Extreme Couture. And so she didn't have any kind of, anything around her. Nobody to even start to talk about, an idea of how to prepare for Ronda or anything like that. And she had asked, just do me a favor and give me 6 months of time to get a team together and get myself kind of back into the flow of training. And yeah, I'll take the fight. Just give me that time. Just don't let people know that this is what I'm doing. It's okay if people see me back in the gym. I just don't want them knowing that I am going to be fighting Ronda.
Yeah.
And that was agreed upon. And shortly thereafter, it became, out there that Dana came out and said basically that he was trying to sign Gina Carano to take on Ronda Rousey. And Gina she's a different person. She's very shy. She's very quiet. She doesn't communicate with, she's got her people that she talks to, and she wasn't happy about it. And one of the people that she used to talk to a lot was Randy Couture. And then there was a text that was sent, and it wasn't meant to be sent to her, but it was a mistake, or somehow because her name, somehow it got sent to her. And it basically was saying, that she wasn't being easygoing in this, negotiation and what was going on. And she sent it back to Dana, and Dana said, yeah, that was meant for you. And from that point, she didn't talk to him. She just iced him out. Yeah. And that's the kind of person she is. And that's the way she should be. She should not take abuse from anybody over anything when it comes to the negotiation of a fight. Yeah. She had agreed to something. They had agreed to something, and someone didn't hold up their end of the agreement. And then they're upset about the fact that someone's not being helpful to them when they haven't held up their end of the agreement. That's what happens. Yeah. That's what it is.
She kind of hit the nail on the head. She said she was basically felt like she was trying to be bullied into the fight. Like she was trying to and we've seen that countless times. We've seen that countless times with Dana, and we've seen it with boxing promoters as well. But I just want to go back to when people ask me about Chris Cyborg and they ask me about other fighters that Bellator has signed, and they continuously said like, oh, well, they left for easier competition. I said, no, they actually left because they like to be treated better. That's one. And two is because they got paid more. You know, and so when you talk to guys like Ryan Bader and Phil Davis and Gegard Mousasi and myself, I talk to myself all the time. But I have
great conversations.
Yeah, it's great conversations. Amazingly, we always agree, but it's and now Cyborg, and I haven't had an opportunity or a chance to talk to Kat Zingano, but she's now with Bellator as well. But look, the conversation always comes back to the fact that they don't like the way that they're being treated, and Gegard was like number 2 or 3, I think, on the scale, and was basically like next in line for a title shot.
He was.
Jacare was ahead of him. There was no reason for him to leave. He was on a win streak. Like he was winning fights, and he was like one fight, maybe just right next in line for a title, because Jacare ended up losing to Yoel Romero, I believe. And then Gegard would have potentially have been next or somebody else right in front of him, so he maybe would have had to fight one more time. But there was no reason for him to leave. It really just came down to the fact that he didn't like the way the UFC was treating him, which means Dana White was treating him, and he was getting paid more money somewhere else. So I would wish that people would understand. I know they're not gonna, okay, but I wish people would understand that, like, sometimes when you see in the bigger sports, let's say NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, these guys don't leave teams because they want to be always on the winning team. They leave teams because they want to make more money. And whatever team, sometimes the shitty teams have a bigger salary cap, and they want to go there, and they want to make more money because they can make millions to retire on. Like after they're done, they know that the money is gonna be there. Like it doesn't make a difference about the UFC. The UFC's not gonna be there for them anymore. And Chuck Liddell found that out. They're not gonna be there for them anymore. Like you'll have to beg to get tickets to go to the events.
And either is the money. That's the whole point. Is when you stop, they're not sending you more money. No. They don't care about you. It's like, oh, okay, you retired. Have a nice life, and you better be able to live off of what you made. We talked about fighters' careers, and I always say if you have a 10-year career, you had a great career. Now there are guys that I absolutely have, careers that are twice that long, but it's not the common. The common is, fighters have careers usually of about 4 to 5 years. You have a 10-year career, you're doing good. You have a 15-year career, fantastic. 20-year career, incredible. But this is your moment to set yourself up for the rest of your life. And you've got to make as much money as you can, because you don't know which fight it's going to be that's going to change you, that's going to make it to where you don't fight as well now for the rest of your career. And those fights are out there no matter what organization you're fighting in. I'm never going to sit here and say the UFC isn't great. They're great.
No, they are great.
But the fighters in Bellator are great too. And if you go to any gym that has fighters from both Bellator and the UFC there, you're going to find out quickly that they all know that there's no difference between them. Yep. They're all just good fighters.
Yeah.
And you've got to make your money when you can. And if Bellator is going to pay you more money, go to Bellator. If UFC is going to pay you more money, go to the UFC. Yeah. You've got to make your money when you can.
This is what baffles me the most. All I see all over social media from some of these fighters and other athletes, know your worth. All they post is all these dumb sayings and all these dumb quotes about know your worth. I have no idea why all of these guys, it's almost like they're afraid to piss off the UFC.
They are.
But I don't understand why. Just check out the free market agency. See where you can make the most money. You said it yourself. When you're done fighting, They will not be sending you a check anymore. They won't be giving you a little check in the mail. You're not going to get that extra 10 grand or that extra 20 grand because of who you were and what you did for them. Let me give you a little insight. Just until recently, Cowboy Cerrone's been fighting all the time, right? His legacy has been, he's fought everybody anytime, been a company man the whole time. It wasn't until recently that he was only making 120 grand a fight. How fucking sad is that? A guy takes last minute fights, steps up fights all the time. Now finally he got a bump in pay, and then I've from what I understand, it's already been confirmed, or maybe it hasn't been publicly confirmed, but he's now pretty much got the fight with Conor McGregor, which is supposed to be at the end of January is what it sounds like, maybe early February. They haven't got the exact date yet.
Thought it was January 18th.
Yeah, I think that got bumped though to something else now. Yeah, but yeah, because January 18th, I think, is now supposed to be, I don't know, in some like Houston. And I don't think they're going to take it there. From what I understand, the fight was supposed to be in Vegas for Conor. So if that happens, anyways, it'll be Cerrone and Conor in Vegas, I believe is what they were saying. So if that fight happens, which it's pretty much agreed on by both parties, contracts are not fully signed yet, from what I understand, but it is agreed on for both of them. But this is finally his big money fight, but it's his money fight, I think, is more or less to say farewell. Like, hey, at least you made a lot of money in this fight, and now you can kind of just, if you want to fight one or two more times, cool, but if not, cool. But this is kind of like your send-off fight. But my point is that at the end of the day, he's been the token company man for the UFC.
Oh, he's been fantastic for the UFC.
Phenomenal. That guy, he's done everything they've asked him to do.
Yep.
And just until recently, a couple fights ago, he was only making 120 grand or 140 or 160. Like, I know maybe you guys are sitting home thinking, oh, that's a lot of money. That's a ton of money. But look, whenever he's done fighting, that will be it. Like, he's going to have to find another career. He's going to have to find another thing to make money to provide for his family. And people don't get that. There's another 60 years of your life you still have to live.
And that
you hope.
that BMF or what is BMR? His BMR ranch, man. It's costly.
Yeah. It's, I mean, so
I don't personally know what Donald makes. And I know that, guys make more money than people think, but this is a fight that should have taken place 3 years ago.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Now, that doesn't mean that I still won't want to see it now, but this is a fight. When they did that, they had that whole come together and Conor was in a cat fight with everybody and talking about red panties and all that stuff. And that was the moment, because he was supposed to fight, Dos Anjos.
Yep.
And kind of got into it with Cerrone there. Jeremy Stevens was trying to give his little thing, but it was a matter of that was back when that fight should have happened. But it'll be nice. I think it's a great thing for Donald. Conor hasn't been fighting. Donald has. Donald is not the same fighter that he was. He's. You can see there's a little bit of a regression in his abilities and stuff. We'll see what happens in it, but I hope he makes a ton of money off of it. He deserves it. He's been incredible for the sport, for the UFC as a company. Donald Cerrone he's the man.
I don't normally buy UFC pay-per-views. I usually just bootleg them. So, but just because
so you'll bootleg that one too.
No, just because he's on. If he fights Conor McGregor, I will actually pay the full, and I'll even get the HD just so he gets a little bit more. Yeah, absolutely. I've loved watching that guy fight for the longest time, and he is exactly what I would hope that every fighter would look up to and be like. He's amazing. Everything about him. I love the way he carries himself. He truly is a fighter down at the heart. I love the way he is with his son. I love the way he is just on TV and carry. It's him. This is who you get. This is who you're going to get, and I love everything about him. And like I said, I'm going to buy the pay-per-view just because he's on it.
Same here. I love to see him, so that's...
Yeah, when we talk about fighters being mistreated, and when we talk about people don't understand why fighters want to leave or why they leave. Oh, they couldn't do it or they couldn't handle it. No, it's not that. Sometimes fighters just want to get paid more money. That's one. Sometimes fighters don't want to be mistreated. And with Cyborg, she got tired of being called a man. She got tired of being mistreated. She got tired of being talked down to.
go back and look at all the things that happened. You know, before Chris was ever signed with the UFC, because that signing was done by Lorenzo Fertitta. That was not done by Dana. Dana didn't even want that. Lorenzo was the one, hey, this is the best female fighter in the world. We need to get her. And I agree with him. I agree with him, 100% on that. And then everything that happened even before it, you look at some of the comments that were made, just immature and wrong, just unnecessary. But I think she looked at it believing Lorenzo, that, hey, it's going to be good here. We're going to take care of you. You're going to fight great. And then Lorenzo left. He sold the company, and she's in that position. And sometimes personalities just don't get along, and hers and Dana's never really got along. And you need to be careful with what you say, because you say something and it means nothing to you doesn't mean that it doesn't affect somebody else permanently. And some of the things that were said has affected her permanently, and she was very upset. I can tell you that I talked to her, over a year ago. It's been a year and a half ago when she was upset about, what was going on, and said, I don't even want to be with this company because they have no respect for me. They treat me wrong. I get lied to, and no one. Think about yourself. I don't care what job you do. You work for somebody, you go to your boss, and your boss tells you something, you walk out of the office, and then the next day, what he said is exactly the opposite. How does that make you feel? This is what happens. It's no different in the fight game than it is in other. It's a job. For the fighter, it's a job. This is how they make their money. And they have to believe in the person that they are working for, that person has their best intent towards them and being fair to them. That's all they expect is, hey, be fair to me. And sometimes that just doesn't work out.
Yeah, because you got to think, like Gina had said that basically he had sent a text saying the words, this bitch is just doing this and this. And then when she had called
stringing us along.
Yeah, stringing us along.
Yeah.
She had said basically like, hey, I think you said this to the wrong person. He's like, no, it was meant for you. And that right there, like you said, she just shunned him out and it was done. Like went radio silence. But when you have that, if somebody's willing to do that,
she gave up $1 million.
Yeah, and
$1 million.
That was back when these guys, none of us were really making. No one's making that type of money.
Come on,
I mean, there had a couple guys that were.
She walked away from it because she said, "You know what? I don't want to be around you."
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah. And so when people talk, when I read stuff on Twitter and I read stuff on Instagram, and I shouldn't care, but I really do feel for Cyborg, because there's a lot of things that were said a lot worse to her. And when people ask like, oh, she left because she was scared. She hasn't been scared of anyone since she started fighting. There was that. And then, and like, oh, she didn't want to fight the best girls. No, if you actually talk to Scott Coker and you actually talk to Bellator, they're willing to make that Amanda Nunes fight and Cyborg fight. But the UFC's not willing to do it. Scott
Coker's willing to make it, but Dana White's not going to be willing to make it.
No, he's not willing to make it. And the reason, and people should understand, the reason why she didn't resign is because she didn't want to be under the UFC banner anymore. Had nothing to do with that. Is that she would have had to sign a 3-fight deal. She fought for that.
Well,
title.
no. In fact, let's make this clear for everyone.
Okay.
Because that was part of the whole thing. That Dana came out and said, I will make her a 1-fight deal. Okay? So Dana came out and said, I'll make her a 1-fight deal. But in him saying that, he's giving you a half-truth. In the half-truth is the contract is a 1-fight deal. But if you become the UFC champion, meaning you win, you are under contract to me.
Yep.
So you can't go away. You are mine. And she would have been now under contract with Dana as her boss. And she could do nothing about it until she lost her title.
Yeah. It's rough, man.
It's a good world, man. It's a good world.
And they to go back to BJ Penn, they started doing that because BJ left when he was the champion.
That's right.
You know, I just love how all of this stuff is all intertwined with just
it is.
years and years of just life experiences. I mean, what else? I think, do we have any fan questions? Let's answer about 3 or 4 of them. You got time, John?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll pull this one up right now. Did you see Mayweather said he's coming out of retirement next year?
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, he's coming out of retirement. You know what they're doing?
I think they're starting Zuffa boxing.
Zuffa boxing. Congratulations.
Yeah, they're trying to really get De La Hoya out.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, they're trying to shut
Neither
down
of them like De La Hoya.
Nope.
Mayweather Productions does not like De La Hoya. Dana White obviously does not like De La Hoya. Yeah. And so, hey, if we get together and do this for this amount of time, look at what we can do. Yeah. So, look out, man. It's coming.
We'll see. I mean, Mayweather says he's coming out of retirement, but is he going to fight? Is he going to fight an MMA guy? Is he going to fight a boxing guy?
That is, I could see them doing something. I say he comes out, he does an exhibition, something like that, because an exhibition does what to his record? 0. Nothing. Yeah. You could put him in anything, doesn't matter. How he looks, anything. He's got nothing to prove. And I would think for them to try to build something, they're going to use his name and his persona with it. But I'm looking at it saying, "Nice move, Dana."
I thought it was a brilliant
nice
move.
Move.
Dana. It was a
Dana
brilliant move.
Just showed smart move.
Yep. Yeah, but here's my next question: is now that you have Zuffa boxing, and are you going to have? I'm just wondering if he's going to have crossover, and then those fighters that are under contract with the UFC, well, as soon as they go to boxing, they're under the Muhammad Ali Act. How does
it's all? First off, they're under contract as a MMA fighter with the UFC. Now, if the UFC allows them out of that contract for a fight in boxing, then yes, the boxer is under the same stipulations that the Muhammad Ali Act has in place, meaning that the promoter would have to show them exactly how much money they're making on the event. They get a certain percentage, or all the fighters on the card get a certain percentage of that amount. There's all kinds of other little things involved. And the other part is that the contract, if you are a boxer, you cannot have a boxer that is a promoter and manages you in any fashion. So right now the UFC doesn't do that anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Interesting.
All kinds of little things.
I wonder if this can get held up in court.
You know what? Talk to Mark Hunt. Let's see how he feels about taking the UFC to court. That's it.
That poor guy.
Yep.
Wow. It's interesting to see, man. It really is.
Yeah, it is
interesting to see.
Well, anytime that you go to court and your lawsuit ends up being dragged into Nevada and you're going against those guys, kiss it goodbye. It ain't gonna happen.
Wow.
Doesn't matter how right you are. It ain't gonna go your way.
Flashbacks of when Vegas first started, huh? Mafia.
Oh, hey. Let me tell you. If you think fighting is fair, you're crazy. Especially when it comes to those kind of fights with those guys. You ain't going to win.
What do you got for us, Dave?
This one comes from Austin Middaw, who asks, what steps would you suggest someone to start taking if they've got an interest in becoming an MMA judge or just kind of working within the the process of glove fitting, weigh-ins, etc.?
I guess that one's for you there, Josh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I have no way of answering that question.
If you have an interest in being an MMA judge, first thing you need to do, get yourself to the local gym of your area and start learning MMA. You need to understand all of the different techniques that guys are using. And when I say techniques, we're talking not only about submission, we're talking about wrestling techniques, because you need to judge what these guys are doing. So you need to understand a single leg, running the pipe, double leg, high crotch, all these different types of wrestling takedowns. You need to know what an osotogari is, an uchimata, a seonagi, a haragosh, a tayatosh. All these are things that you need to know. As soon as it's being done, you know exactly what it is. Because if you don't know what the fighter's doing, how do you judge the fighters in what they're doing? So you've got to have knowledge of the sport and knowledge beyond, I watch all the UFCs. Okay, that's not the knowledge that we need. Then if you have that type of knowledge, you're that good, then you need to find a course. There are courses out there. I teach one once a year. It's in International Fight Week in July in Las Vegas. You can find a couple else out there, and you need to take one of those. It'll give you an idea of exactly what is the criteria that you need to be judging off of, how to use that criteria, what elements you should be looking at. It's going to give you all that information. It'll give you everything there is as far as what you need to know. Then you need to be going to your local state athletic commission and finding out which amateur programs are out there in your state and how you get involved with them. Contact those amateur programs and say, you know what, I just want to be part. And if that means that you become an inspector first and you sit in the back with fighters and you watch and you learn how to tape hands and how to watch that, just become part of the sport and eventually get moved into possibly starting to judge amateur fights. That's how you start to do it. If you think it's a fast journey, you're wrong. It's not. It's going to take you a lot of years, but that's the way you do it.
Stay committed. I did this for 3 years on my own before Mr. Josh Thompson gave me an opportunity. So I got beat up by Pat Barry in the process.
He didn't even know what he was doing until I brought him along. What's next?
I have a good one from Daniel McZilla. He asks it in two pieces. His first piece is, Big John, can you tell us Tony Ferguson's story? And then Josh, can you go more in depth on your fight with Tony, where you were in your career, Tony's place in the sport at that time, and what you think about him now?
Do you have a Tony Ferguson story off the top of your head?
Yeah, sure.
He trained at your gym for a while.
Yeah, he did, man. No one wanted to train with him. He was crazy. He trained the same way. He never did anything that wasn't at 100%. Even when you're trying to tell him, hey, this is technique. Go easy right now. No, everything Tony did was at 100%. If you weren't willing to go hard with him, he just was not into it with you, and there needed to be somebody else. And he was funny because he had that personality. The guys liked him and they hated him. And it was, that, dude, I really like him. He's such an asshole when you train with him, right? But he's just got that motor and he's got that focus of, I need to go hard. And that's made him who he is. It's also broken him at times, I think, to a point, but he's a character. He's a special guy. I love the guy. And the one thing I always love is when I would do his fights, his dad would always come up to me and talk to me, and he would actually ask me, what do you think? And that was, before the fight was going to happen. And I would always talk to him and be honest with him and say, hey, this is what he needs to do. He does that, he's going to be fine. But Tony's a great guy.
What was the question for me?
What was the question for me?
Can you go into more depth on your fight with Tony, where you were in your career, Tony's place in the sport at the time, and then what you think about him now?
My thought process on him hasn't changed. Like what I think of him now, like I was never somebody that had a whole lot of emotions that were involved with the other person that I was fighting. I've always looked at this as just a job, and I mean that's why when I was with the UFC and they got rid of the division, I was like, okay, where else am I gonna go? I went and started fighting kickboxing for Scott Coker, and then I went and fought in Pride. It was like I always treated it like a job. This is a job, man. Like, and you can't get attached to. Even though I am attached to Scott Coker and Bellator, but I was attached to Scott Coker and Strikeforce though as well. Look, I tend to follow, or not follow, but I tend to try to surround myself with people that I know I enjoy being around. And Big John and I are walking proof of that right now. That's why we're doing a show together. We started off doing shows for Bellator. I just gravitated towards him because I enjoy being around people that are just endless amounts of knowledge. I mean, I love talking and picking the brain of him and just other fights and past fights and so when we're talking about Tony and the concept of me with Tony, I didn't think anything of him. I thought he was a good fighter. Thought he was very dangerous. He had kind of a weird style of fighting, but you could tell that he felt we were talking earlier about Terry Brazier and some other fights. You could tell that he is comfortable anywhere in that cage.
No doubt about it.
You take me down, I don't give a shit. Okay, if we're on the feet, I don't give a shit. You got my back, who cares?
I don't care.
You mount me, I don't give a. He doesn't care. He just knows, okay, look, I don't want to be here. Time to get out. Okay, and that's when I knew. I'm like, shit, man. He has the same type of mentality that I have. Some guys though, when they get mounted, they panic. They just they start turning to their side, just cover up, and they're not always. You should always be trying to get out. And if you're not, once you just get into the fetal position and cover your head, you've lost the fight. And he doesn't do that. He's always moving. He's always trying to do something. And I knew that this was going to be one of those fights. As far as where I was in my career, it had nothing to do with him. And I want to give him full credit. I had said this before. I felt like outside the Eves fight, the Clay Guida fight, which I thought he was greased, and I like Clay, but I thought that fight he was greased. He had a bunch of stuff in his hair, and it just got real slippery within a minute and a half in the fight. And it changed how I fought the fight. And then after that, at the end of the first round, I got cut really bad. And it just changed the whole dynamic of the fight. But with Tony, I just knew that he just was one of those guys, and nothing against him. I just was kind of 1 foot out because I was already in my mind, I was like, I'm headed to Bellator.
You didn't want to be with the UFC.
I didn't want to be with the UFC. And so when I speak to you guys about what Cyborg's going through, I was already there. Look, I knew when Strikeforce got bought out by the UFC, I knew I was not going to stay there long. I was already thinking maybe one, because I had worked for one already. I was working for one, I think, at the time, or right shortly after. I was in communication with them about commentating for them and making a move potentially over there once my contract was up. I'd already fought for the UFC. I already fought for Dana White, and I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be, but I had to do the best I could to make it, happen for me. The other thing as well is there was a lot of rumblings, and like I said, I'm good friends with a lot of guys that were really close to Dana White, and so when I got offered the title shot, I didn't really get offered the title shot. I want people to understand that title shot was not really offered to me. It was offered to me, the deal was done, the contracts were signed, and then Pettis got hurt, supposedly. It was one of those things that he was a young, talented, very talented guy, and I was not really ever going to be given that title shot. No difference than when Dan Henderson was supposed to fight John Jones. Same thing happened. John got apparently hurt, and Dan was forced to fight somebody else. And
no. That's reversed. That's reversed.
Really?
Dan was supposed to fight John. Dan pulled out.
I thought John got hurt.
And then John, based upon Greg Jackson, said he didn't like that they were going to bring Chael Sonnen in. And because that was the person they were going to go, and that was UFC 151. That never happened. So
that's right. That's
yes.
right. I do recall that. Okay.
Just want to make sure you got it right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My apologies, you guys. But look, to go back to Tony, everything was just changed, in the dynamic of where I was in my career. As far as I was supposed to fight for the title, it didn't happen, and when I was never offered anybody else. And so I had to actually tell them that I was like, hey, I'm not going to take a fight until he's ready. And they told me, well, fine, you can fucking sit on the sidelines for a year. And I was like, fine. So I had my manager call him and tell him, hey, well, Josh is financially stable. He'll be okay for a year and he'll wait for that title shot. And within a week, they called me back and they said, how about Benson Henderson? I said, I'll take that fight. All I wanted was somebody ranked higher than me, or ranked right there.
Ranked within you, yeah.
Yeah, within me. I even asked for Donald Cerrone because I think Cerrone was ranked number 5 at the time. And I said, I'll take Donald. And they said no. And then I said, well, I was asking for anybody that was in that conversation, and they weren't willing to give it to me. And so I said, all right, well, fuck it. So I'll just wait.
Damn Joe Silva.
But yeah. So look, where I was in my career, once I fought Tony, I was 1 foot out. I already knew that I wanted to leave, and I had a good idea that I wanted to leave. And I knew I was going to leave. And as far as what I think of him, I think he's a phenomenal athlete, man. He's fucking great for the sport. He really is a good guy. And I love all the things that he's done. The only thing that I wish that he would have done that would have changed for him was he should have taken that interim title shot, I think, against Khabib. Or was it against Khabib or
Dustin Poirier?
Dustin Poirier. He should have done that because then Dustin got the title shot. And I don't think that Dustin could have beat Tony at this point in his career. You know, and so I think Tony would have won, and Tony would have been fighting Khabib, and they would have had their fight already. And I just feel like
that should be their fight. That should be the fight. The only problem with that fight, it should be Khabib facing Tony.
Yeah, it should have been.
That should be Khabib's next fight.
Yeah, but Khabib was out though. It will be. I think they're basically saying the contracts aren't signed, but today they said that it's supposed to be scheduled for April.
Yeah. Then you just got to put them both in the bubble. So they don't get hurt. They don't step on any cables. They don't dehydrate. Yeah.
Well, here's my concern is this though, and I'm obviously Team Khabib, but the thing is though is if you're talking this conversation, this fight should have happened over 2 years ago.
Yep.
Tony Ferguson is now pushing 37 years old or 36, 37. So he's older. I'm not saying we're not going to get the same Tony that I fought, but this is around that time I started feeling myself not be the same fighter. Right, 30, I knocked out Nate at 36. Like 37 was that like, all right, you're not really what you used to be. And you just I started feeling it. I'm not saying that that's going to happen to him, but it starts to get around that age. And so who knows? Maybe he shocks the world and beats Khabib, you know, but I would have liked to have, it's almost like the Mayweather and Pacquiao fight. I wanted to see this 3 years ago. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with this whole situation. But I think he's a phenomenal person. He's a phenomenal athlete.
Same as I'm talking about Conor and Cowboy. It should happen 3 years ago. Yeah. But still want to see it. I will put my money down.
Yeah.
So
now all people are going to ask though, Josh, is what do you mean by you're never really going to get the title fight?
What do you mean?
You said you're never really going to get a title fight?
Yeah, I mean, like, the contracts were signed. We were supposed to fight. But you got to remember, during that time, Pettis got hurt. Apparently got hurt. Okay? And then everyone that I talked to that was close to Dana was like, they pretty much were just like, Pettis is 26 years old at the time or 27 years old. Remember, he was on the cover of the Wheaties box. They were like, let's just have you sit on the sideline for a little bit. We'll promote you, get you bumped, amped back up. Get you, like, basically spend that time. They've done this before with past guys, and they have won titles. They have basically taken some time, not said sit on the sideline, but let's take 6 months and let's go ahead and make you a star. Get you on some talk shows, put you on the news, you know, put you on the covers of the Wheaties box, those kind of things. I just feel like at that moment, I don't think that the title shot, from what I heard, really wasn't going to be an option. We got close because then they turned around and offered me. I want to say they offered me Kabalov. Was his name Kabalov?
Yeah, Ruslan.
Yeah, Ruslan. And he was, I don't even know if he was ranked in the top 15. I'm like, wait a second. And then they were going to take me from the main event to the opening fight on TV. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I'll just take my time. You know, there's no reason, you know. And then that's when they came back with, hey, you know, well, then fine, you can sit on the sideline. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll just sit on the sideline. I mean, good thing was I made a lot of money in Strikeforce. So when I went there and I fought Nate and beat Nate, it was like, okay, now I have more money. And I'm good. So, I mean, I was fine. Financially, I was okay. So I could sit. Within a week later, I got a call. Okay, how about Benson? Because that's all I asked for. I just asked for somebody that was ranked where I was at. Give me somebody up there, you know? And it didn't work out. And this is the chance I took, though. That's what happens. That's the fight game. I'm happy with that decision, and I'm happy with where I'm at.
So somebody asked last week that we didn't get to, if you and Gilbert fought and you won and you could get a title shot as like you're going out opportunity. No. You wouldn't do it?
Nope. I have no interest in it.
All right.
I have interest in one fight. The one fight I have interest in is me and Gil. That's it. I'm done.
All right.
Like, you will hear my official announcement of my retirement right there on the spot. Win or lose, I'm done.
Well, if you lose, Big John's not going to come in and talk to you. So,
John, I think John will still talk to me.
I definitely would talk to you if he says I'm going to go for the title. I'm going to pick him up and drop him.
You throw me out of the cage like Tate tried to do.
That's it.
Let's do a couple more.
All right. So this one's really just targeted to Big John, but I think it's a good one. And it's from Ray Galindo, and he asked, Big John, what was going through your head when you seen Nick Diaz lay on the ground versus Silva? And what, if anything, do you teach referees regarding situations like this?
Oh, you know, you don't teach people things that just don't happen, really. You know, the first thing that I swear to you, when he laid down on the ground, I just looked and said, only fucking Nick Diaz. That was exactly what went through my mind. And a lot of people, well, it's funny because a lot of people looked and said, you know, oh my God, what were you thinking? I go, it's pretty simple. I said, he lays down. I go, as soon as Anderson takes a step back, Anderson is the standing fighter. He's the guy in control. Hey, you got to get up. You know, and a lot of people were like, why didn't you let him fight there? There is a bout conduct, and if a fighter is on the ground and that standing fighter backs off of him, that's saying that I want him up, and we make him get up. So it made it pretty easy for me. Yeah. But I swear to God, at the time I said only Nick fucking Diaz, man.
That's hilarious.
He did all, you know, he took, you know, he turned his back to him and kind of showed his butt, laid down on the ground, and you look and you go, oh my God, only you would even think of doing that against him.
Let's talk, since this is brought up, it kind of gets me onto the Dan Miragliotta thing with MVP. What do you do in that situation?
I'm sorry.
The Dan Miragliotta and MVP situation that happened in Dublin where, like, you know, MVP's beating someone and he dropped him or whatever, and like he's like doing like selfie shots. And
that it's simple. You know, there's a lot of verbal communication at times in a fight between referees and fighters. People on the outside don't hear it, they don't know, but you know, there's things that are said all the time. So hey, you tell Michael, knock it off, just fight, and that's it. You know, it's as simple as that. And it's a matter of you got to look. Fighting is a show, and you need to figure out as the referee, he is the showman. Now, if it's crossing that certain line that you think is, hey, that's too much, you can come in and say, hey, knock it off. It's unsportsmanlike. You want me to take a point? It's going to come. And he's going to stop. All right? You don't have to jump that fence line and go all the way. It's just, you got to be really, you know, smart about when you're going to take points. Points are something that you just don't take willy-nilly. I'll bring this. I love Joe Rogan, and Joe all the time is, I think, you know, you got an eye poke, automatic, take a point. You know, you got a groin shot, take a point. And I just feel like I would love one time. All right, Joe, here you go. We're going to take points the way you want. And then when he's going to have this fight where it's just out of control, because those things do happen. Yeah. And if you're automatically just taking points, you know, he's going to have a guy that's beating someone easily but loses the fight, and he's going to be, that's ridiculous. No, it's not ridiculous. What you created. Yeah. So you have to be very smart and judicious with the taking of a point in MMA. It's a serious thing.
Especially in a 3-round fight.
Yes.
You know, you take 1 point, it's like, oh man, you're making that guy fight twice as hard now to try and win.
You could be
that round. Yeah.
Yep.
And he could get himself in some serious trouble trying to overcompensate for that 1 point. Okay,
Yep.
Well, let's do another one.
From Dominic Schrute, he wants to know, does Anthony Johnson get a top 5 heavyweight for his return fight, or do you think we'll see a warm-up fight first?
I know what I'd like to see. I want to see him in a fight with a guy that's maybe in the top 15. Don't put him against someone in the top 5 right away. Let him get that fight, just get that feeling of getting back in the cage, you know, putting up with the media, putting up with everything. Don't stick him with that guy that, you know, is going to push him to that point where he might be taking a step too far. Give him the guy that it's a good fight. It's a good fighter. If he doesn't fight well, he's going to lose, but he doesn't have to deal with that little bit of element that happens when you're getting into the top 5. There's a difference.
The only thing is that I don't think that he's going to be keen, not him, but the UFC going to be keen on that, because I believe they granted his offer of $1 million for the fight.
Okay, well, as soon as you start to bring the pay into that level,
yeah,
that can change everything, and that's okay. You know, if he's getting paid that, then you're getting paid to produce.
Yep. So my thought, though, is if he fights Volkov or if he fights Derek Lewis, I think he's got a really good chance of winning those fights. And that that's a good. Those are good. I think to me those are both good tune-up fights for him. Not that I love both those guys; they're both tough, but I don't think they're both very hittable. They're both stand right in front of him. Volkov posed a little bit more like some dangers with his kicking and push kick and that type of stuff. But we've seen other guys try and do that to him and to AJ, and AJ's been able to just starch him. I mean, Gus to me is a better fighter than Volkov, and Anthony dispatched of him very quickly.
Yeah,
but I've also
I've
also kind of heard though too that he's potentially going to be getting to 205 to fight for the title.
Well, I tell you, man, the last time I saw him, he was so big and
so big.
I was like, how much do you weigh? And I think at the time he said 257.
No, I think he was more. I saw him. I think he was like 270 something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. At the time that I think he said 257, and maybe
wow.
And I was like, dude, and for him to get back down, that was a lot of weight he had, and that's a lot of muscle because he was big. And he wasn't, he had some more fat on him, but he was muscular.
Yeah.
So, it's 205 would be, if he wants to do it.
I think at heavyweight he's money though. I think Volkov. Who else is there at heavyweight? What's the Corey Anderson? Is he at heavyweight?
No, Corey Anderson's light heavyweight.
Who's the other heavyweight guy? There's Derek Lewis. There's Volkov, Ngannou.
Yeah, you got Blagoy.
There's another guy.
Blagoy's there.
Blagoy.
Yeah, I see. Blagoy's too slow for Anthony.
Yeah, he is too slow for him. He's too hittable also.
Yeah.
Anthony
Ngannou's number 2. Curtis Blades number 3.
Curtis Blades. That's who I was thinking of.
Well, Curtis is a good wrestler.
Yes.
Curtis has got good wrestling for you, and then that's that thing in Ngannou's gotten by him twice, so but sometimes he wrestles really well, sometimes he doesn't. Anthony's got good wrestling defense. Now, when he decides to fight Dan Cormier and he decides to wrestle him, I look at him and go, what are you doing? But he does have really good wrestling defense, so I don't see Blades taking him down. And Anthony Johnson doesn't hit any lighter than Ngannou.
And I think he's faster. At least he was. I don't know if he is now that he's put on all that weight, but I think
I don't know.
He was so fast, man.
Yep.
People don't realize I trained with him for years, and I coached him for years, actually, to be honest. And it was like, he's so fast. He's the only guy that I had ever mounted, and he threw a hammer fist from the bottom, and I swear to God, he almost knocked me out. I saw stars. I went limp. My body went limp for a second. I was like,
what the hell is that?
I was like, shit, what the fuck was that? I had him mounted, and I was like posturing up, trying to throw punches, like real light, and he fucking just hammer fisted me upwards, and I swear my body went limp, and I put my hands on the mat, and I was like, shit, man, I almost went out.
Probably hitting you right in the top of the head.
Bro, he hit me right in the face. It was like right on my, what's the movie Bloodsport where the white guy with the bandana grabs the small guy and just hammer fists him in the face and knocks him out? That's exactly how I felt. It's just like, boom, oh. Anyways, all right, man. Well, that was our last question, or we have more.
Good.
But yeah, that'll work. Hey, buddy. I'll see you next week. I keep thinking I'm not gonna see you till Hawaii, but I'll see you next week. If anything else comes up this week, are you available this week?
Absolutely.
It's Thanksgiving week. So
it's all right.
If Dave said he's available, if you're available, I can try to definitely do it as well. So if some more news drops, I'd like to be able to try to drop some more shows this week if we can.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.
Glad to see you, man. You did a good job in London, man. I was proud of you.
Are you sure?
No, you did a good job, man. Yeah. Good job, especially on the commentary stuff, man. You're covering things. You're making it easy for people. It's not. You're not getting too scientific. How's that?
Yeah, I actually had some British fans that were there said, "Hey, I don't really understand the grappling. Can you please just tell me about this and tell me about that?" I'm like, you know what? I don't know if the UK fans really understand grappling all that much. And so when I was talking to Dave Farrar, who's the guy who works with me, he's like, I've got tons of friends that would love to come. They'd love to come to live events. but they don't understand the grappling. So like, yeah, they just go back on their phone. And I'm like, so they don't go to the event because they're like, we don't understand any of the grappling. We don't know what it means. And so I'm like, all right. So like, I don't think if you heard me while I was commentating, I was kind of trying to break down more of the positions, you know, and then I even had some people texting me or DM me from the UK, and they're like, hey man, you made it so easy to understand. I want to thank you for just explaining it. Like I didn't understand what he was doing when he kept lacing the legs and It was funny that someone like kept figure four in the legs, and I was like, well, so he can't move, and it did work out. It worked out better. I'm glad you said it, which means it really did work.
Did good, man.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you this week, and we'll try to get scheduled. We'll for sure talk next week, but maybe again this week.
Sounds good, man. Talk to you later.
All right, bud. Have a good one,
Bye.
man. Bye.